when you open up your images, this is going to be the big type. So this is the one sentence that needs to be large. This is the body copy. Notice you have subheads which need to be bold, and I'm telling you what image that you need to work with. And you've got 4 different pages that we'll create. I do give you the JPEG for each of the images, and these are a lot larger images than what's on the Word file that I've given to you. We're going to be making this in Illustrator. I don't recommend Illustrator for doing large amounts of type, but I do want to point out some things you can do in Illustrator with type, and that's why we're doing it for this one. First of all, when we set it up, make sure there's 4 artboards. I did say to do facing pages. There's no facing pages on here. When you set up the 4 artboards, we want them to be in 2 different columns. So make sure that one of these is selected. This is your columns, and you can set the number of columns to 2, and they're spacing side by side from here. The size is going to be a tabloid. Everything else will keep the same. We'll say OK to that. And that's how you get your 4-page layouts that look like this. Nothing we haven't done already before. One thing Illustrator doesn't do is margins very well. You have to actually create your own margins. So I've turned on my rulers, and we're going to click on them and drag out to give me 1-inch margins on all sides. So y'all bear with me as I make these really, really quick. Do notice, however, since there's a space, I'll need to reposition my, my ruler. How do I reposition the ruler? You tell me.
Drag it from the corner.
Bingo. Remember, you can drag it from the corner. I want it to start right here. So now it's repositioned right there. 1 inch, 1 inch. The best part about these being in 2 columns is when I drag one guide, it goes to the other page as well. Same way from the top. 1 inch from that top, 1 inch from the bottom. We'll need to reposition this down here. 1 inch from the top, 1 inch from the top here or the bottom as well. The next guide is I want the type to be in the top upper portion. So I need to drag one more guide that's 10 inches from the top. Right there. And drag another guide that's 10 inches from the top of this page. Alright, did I lose anybody? All simple stuff, just making the setup for this one. So let's go into our type copy and see what we can work with. You can see I've done the first one already, and it gives you kind of an idea of how it should look. Now, it looks very, very simple. You know, where's the challenge in doing this? There's a lot of variation that you can do even within the fields that you have, but there are some limitations that I want to place on what you're doing. So I'm going to do the second one since we've already done the first one. Then I shall bow in humble adoration. What hymn is that from? Anybody know?
How great thou art.
How great thou art. How many of y'all knew it and how many of y'all just read it? Yeah, it's right here on the page. So I'll copy this. I'm going to grab my type tool. Rather than making a text box, I'm just going to click once. That'll give me my type line. I can paste it in. I can use my selection tool to make it a lot bigger. This is why I like to work with that particular side. To make my changes, I need to make sure my character palette is open because I'm going to be using this a lot. Remember, if you can't find it, you can go to Window, and it's hiding underneath the type, and there's my character palette. We'll use the paragraph as well. Right now, I've pasted it. Notice that it's in all caps. This is because I've got my all caps turned on from the last time that I did it. If I uncheck this, you can see I've now got upper and lower case. What I want to do is I want to fill this entire frame with just this type, and I want to keep it all consistent, all the same size, not stretched out, good leading for everything. I'm even going to change the font to be something a little bit more. How great thou art, it's an old-fashioned type. Yeah, let's do Linux display. And that's looking pretty old-fashioned from there. With this, when I broke this text up, notice it has this nice little hourglass type shape. All the words tend to flow into one another. That's one thing that I'm looking for when I break up the text. Another thing is to make sure that it doesn't have a lot of white space. It does have white space, but it's not so much that it looks like there's not enough space at the top. It's very balanced from the top part and the bottom part with this. Whereas if I had a smaller text, let's change this to lowercase, you can see how this is taking up a lot less area than the uppercase. Would you agree? So that's one thing that I'm looking for with my particular type. So let's say, and then I shall, this is where I just start to play around. Bow in humble adoration. Almost square. I'm going to make it larger. Here's one thing that I do not want you to do. What did I just do? I didn't hold shift. What happens if I don't hold shift? It's disproportionate, stretches it out. Always keep your numbers proportional when you drag them out. Here's how you can tell. If you look at your character palette, I got the two little T's, here's the vertical and horizontal, they're at 100%. If I stretch it to do something like this, notice that one of those is 42%. It's off. I want to keep my type exactly the same. Let's keep working with this. This is what it looks like in small case. If I was to stretch it between the two lines, pretty good, but it's still not perfect. Let's make it all caps, see what I can get. Not too bad. Then I shall bow in humble adoration. That's filling up a lot better than what I had before. Another thing I can do, if I need it to reach the top and bottom, is adjust my leading. By default, it's set to auto. Anything above that would be pretty good. So let's increase my leading a little bit. And I'm using my arrow key to number those up. Not too bad. For what I'm working with, this will actually look pretty good. If I wanted things to be what's called small caps, that's what this one will allow you to do. So all my lowercase letters now become uppercase, but really, really small. I could go back in and retype things like the S and the B. Oops. So, to be those as well. So what I'm looking for is to fill this in. We'll set it back to all caps. And go from there. Any questions on what I'm looking for from this? It fills up. It does not have to be center alignment. You can make things to the left or to the right. You can change up using your paragraph. Any particular alignment scheme that you want to work with. I will give you that freedom. So there is a lot of things to think about when working with this. Next thing, let's deal with the body copy down at the bottom. This is where it's going to get a little bit more complicated. I am going to use my type tool. This time, I am going to make a text box. Make sure I don't click on that upper text box. It will start to get in the way. If I was to start typing, you can see it's got the same settings as I had last time. So let's change that back over, and I'll get rid of my all caps. So now when I paste my copy into it, copy, paste, it'll look like this. Why is it so spaced out? Change your leading. Over here, we'll set it back to auto. Looks a lot better from here. In Illustrator, you can have some of the same type of text options that you do in InDesign, but they're a little bit more hidden. To find your text box options, I'm going to go to Type and Area Type Options. Actually, another student showed me if I double-click on my T, it'll also open up this dialog box as well. So there's two different ways. I can go to Type and Area Type, but this is the box that I need to open up to work with them. The first thing we'll set is we need a number of columns, and I do want this to be 4 columns. I'll turn on preview rather than the 3. So set it 1, 2, 3. So now you can see my area is divided up. I want the gutter for this one to be set to 1/4 of an inch. There it is right there. And the inset, the offset spacing that we have. This is the amount of space that's between the edges of the box that I'm in. So if I set my inset spacing to, what was it, 0.188 of an inch, you can see there's now a little bit of a space in between the edges of the box that I'm working on. If everything looks good, we'll say okay. Did I lose anybody on that? All good, same stuff from there. The main thing to remember is the text box options are under the type area options in Illustrator. If you look at your text that I'm giving you, I need this to be bold, so I do need those to stand off a little bit. So I'm going to go in here, quickly format those. And I did ask you to use the typeface Myriad, so M-Y-R, Myriad. It does have Roman for the regular, so I'm going to keep it as Roman for that one. but my type needs to be bold for my headlines. Scoop and bold for that. The last thing is I wanted to add an indentation for all of the paragraphs except for the first paragraph and the subheads. So in other words, I want this paragraph to have a 20-point first line indentation. We're going to do that in our paragraph dialog box. In paragraph, here's our first left indent. You can see when I increase that, it's indenting it over however many points that I want to from here. In InDesign, remember all this is done at the very top, and we also want this at the very last one. Right there. So that's what I'm working with. What two things do not get any indentation?
First paragraph.
First paragraph and the subheads that you're working with. Everything else gets an indentation. Last thing we're going to do is to add the picture and add wrapping around that picture. Since I'm using the flower picture, we're going to go back into Illustrator, place, in our case, the little lilium flower. Now you can place this anywhere within your design. You don't have to keep it centered as I've got it here. So it could be off to the side. You can have it as the first thing. The only place I don't want you to place it is at the very, very end here, and that's because I'm giving you another challenge for this one. I kind of like to place them in between two different columns of text. This way you've got a nice little wrapping around the area that we're working with. With it created, the other thing I'm going to do is to add the text wrap. I need to draw a box around this one. So grab your pen. We're going to draw a quick box. I'm not even doing a good job on this one. I'm just going very quickly to give it the outline that it so desperately needs. From there. Here's how you do text wrap in Illustrator. Got this selected. Excuse me, I've got just the actual object that I just drew. Under Object, here is your text wrap. Choose Make. Now your words are wrapping around this particular object. I still can't see my words, so let's send my picture to the back. Shift Command bracket key will do that. And let's actually turn off the line that I've created. So it looks, oops, excuse me, something like this. Make sense? So I've got two objects to work with. I've got my picture, I've got the actual line from there. The last thing you're going to do, I want you to adjust the leading so that the very last line of your body copy that you have is flush with all the other paragraphs or all the other columns that you've created. In other words, it's touching the very bottom of the box. So this is going to be real fun. Let's select all of it. Under Character, let's increase our leading, see how far we can spread it out. Pretty good. I went over. How do I know I went over? Little red dot down at the bottom. So let's back it up. That's actually not too bad. Now I've got a couple of little problems here. First of all, humble adoration. Well, that needs to be with my paragraph. That's a little orphan that we have there. And also, I don't have everything down here. So there's two things I could do. I could adjust the size of my picture. I'll select just the picture and the text. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And see if we can start pushing some words down and moving them. Hey, that's getting pretty close right there. Now I've got humble adoration. Still got a little text up here. If I was laying this out, I would erase away that upper portion. If I want to spread out some more text, I'm going to select this. And I can adjust my tracking. What is tracking?
The space between the letters.
Space between the letters. And that's what this number is right here. Adjusting this will add a little bit more space, and you can see it's starting to push letters to a line until perfectly words jump to the very bottom edge. It's a small nitpicking detail, but these are the type of things that graphic designers tend to really look for in their particular layouts. If I back out, so now I've got nice layout, large type at the top, good body copy that's there at the bottom. I've got one more change that I want to add to this. I told you to keep the color of this type at the top to be black. Change the type color to match something within your picture. So I've got it selected. I can use my eyedropper tool. Maybe choose this type of pink. And that tends to work out really well. Same way for this one on this side. Highlight it. Choose a color that's within the picture that I've given you. This way it'll unify your design much, much better from there. All cool? Think y'all can handle it? All right, I'm going to turn your computer back over to you.